in English,
Yeah.
Finnish or something.
Yeah.
They say S and J
Yeah.
often. So yeah, for Danish people.
But you know, a lot of Latin American countries and also Spain and Italy and so on, and they pronounce the R in like where they roll with the tongue, and they learn that in Norway, because in Norway they also use that sound, but it's kind of like in Denmark we've never learned that sound, and we have no idea about how to do it because we haven't learned it from childbirth, so it's very hard to learn when you're...
But Germans don't say it as well.
No, we're just very... Viking... very...
From the throat.
We do it from the throat. We do it from the throat, people. Yes, okay. This is Photoshop. Learning to transform. Okay. So this first exercise is kind of... it takes a second to complete. It's just when you're doing magazine design, this is related to magazine design, these courses that we're doing right now. And I'll just switch off. I've done some editing right here. I'll switch those off and just stick to using the retouch one layer. So every other layer is switched off, every other group is switched off. It's just the retouched one. It is actually allowed to, inside magazines, and often done inside of magazines, changing the height of a picture so that the person will become taller. And you know, it's very easy to just transform someone to being taller. So that's just using free transform, edit, free transform, and actually just setting the height without constraining proportions. So right now if I wrote 102%, it would not constrain the proportions. And the difference is that the person becomes taller. It sounds so, you know, straightforward. But still, they actually do this in magazines as long as the face will not become distorted. And you see, it seems perhaps a bit like she's getting a taller forehead. But I think the difference is so small that it is allowable without getting the feeling that she is a distorted being. So yeah, so you could change like a person's height by a few centimeters by just transforming it 102%. It is allowed to go all the way up to 104%. But always check the person's face. Does the face look weird suddenly? And if that happens, then you should do it less than 104%. In this case, I think this picture will still look nice in 102%, not in 104%. Okay, so that's just boom. Let's close this. That was just a simple statement about what they do in magazines. Instead, let's go to the Liquify yoga copy.jpg. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, people out there, people of the world, I'm sitting here with Emmanuel Scorbonia, yes.
Yeah.
And he's the only student here. Because it turns out that the students have deadline today. So they're probably stressed with handing in assignments that have to be handed in at 4 o'clock. What? Yeah. 4 o'clock? Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna have some fun with transformations. Am I right?
Of course.
Cool. Okay, this is a girl doing yoga. I'm quite sure it's a girl. And you know, when you want to put a product picture, or you know, this could be a product actually being sold of, you know, going to yoga classes with this instructor perhaps, or a service being sold. And of course this person would perhaps want herself to be looking as good as possible on this picture. So what they do inside magazines or inside ads is that a common thing to be doing is actually first off using Liquify, and you're probably familiar with Liquify, but let's go inside Liquify. I've just zoomed in so I see just the body parts. I don't need to see the surroundings, the landscape, even though it looks nice and so on. I don't care about it. So filter Liquify, and inside here it's kind of funny because when you want to zoom in by clicking Command plus, you zoom out instead. So Liquify is a bit weird when it comes to zooming. At least on Mac it is. I don't know if it's the same on PC.
Works perfect on Windows.
Okay, so Liquify on Mac inside of Liquify, it's reversed when you click Command plus. But never mind. You can always just zoom in with your mouse wheel. The wheel of doom on your mouth. This, yeah. Alt. Yeah. Okay, so here we'll use the forward warp tool, which is the topmost tool. You notice that I have all kinds of weird things appearing out here on the right. We'll get to that later, but it's just because I'm inside of advanced mode. I can switch that off. Okay, so the forward warp tool, I'll be using that with a size that is not as big as already. Actually, probably a size of around 35. Pressure, that depends on how many times you want to be, how smooth you want it to have the transition. Sometimes it will look unreal if the pressure is at 100%. So you'll take it down a bit, but in this case I think pressure 100% will be fine. Okay, so we see that out here on her hip, it's kind of like her pants is pushing some fat. She's not fat, but but she could appear thinner even though she's still a thin person. And to do that, we'll use the forward warp tool, and we'll just click and drag the body fat in towards her stomach. And sometimes it might appear a bit pixelated, but when we click OK, it will usually appear a bit better. If we do something wrong, if perhaps we do it too much, so she looks like this, then we can always use the reconstruct tool, which is located just below the forward warp tool. And by using that, we can go across an area with it and kind of start reshaping her. And some people actually prefer just exaggerating first, like this, perhaps giving her an insane waist, and then actually afterwards redrawing back towards the original with reconstruct tool. So it depends mostly what you're into. So I think this will be fine. Perhaps her thigh needs to be a bit smaller in some parts, and I think I need to put the pressure a bit down now when using the forward warp tool on her thigh, and just gently push it in towards the center of her thigh, not tie, thigh. This picture is a bit grainy at the edges because it's JPEG compressed. So that needs to be taken into account always when manipulating a picture. Make sure that you're using a picture of high quality, not a picture of bad quality like this one. Okay, so she, a lot of both men and girls, but probably mostly girls, are complaining about this. They have hanging below their arm. I don't know what that's called.
Triceps.
Triceps. The triceps that are hanging below the arm. Okay, so perhaps she doesn't want that to appear as well, so I can just click and drag it up. Perhaps it's just actually to straighten her arm, so it looks as if it's more straight. So she's making the sun warrior pose even better. and perhaps there is some more over here that needs to be straightened as well. And yeah, that it's starting to look somewhat more like what we want for perhaps a home page that is trying to sell some kind of yoga exercise service. So when we're done, we'll click OK. So I'll click OK, and we can just check this is now, and how did it look before. We can just click undo, and you see that suddenly she has an entirely different body shape. And that's just something you could do in 20 seconds or so. And actually a lot of my friends are happy when I process their pictures, because suddenly they think they look much nicer than they do in real life. So you can just alter a person's entire shape through Liquify in Photoshop. Okay, the next thing I'll do, perhaps I'll save this and call this Liquify. It's actually already called Liquify, but perhaps I'll save this, and the next part I'll do is actually doing puppet wop, because perhaps I want some parts of her body to be facing another direction. It's actually better if you want to do puppet wop to have the person extracted on a separate layer, because what can happen if I transform with puppet wop is that suddenly in some areas the landscape will start changing as well. So suddenly if you're trying to turn her foot around, then suddenly the grass and the landscape will start getting all kinds of weird bumps. So, but still we'll try doing it without having her on a separate layer, and then afterwards we'll look at a picture which has it on a separate layer. So we'll go to image. No, we won't. We'll go to puppet wop, which is actually located inside of edit, but right now I can't get a hold of it. It's grayed out, and to get it not to be grayed out, you actually need to release the background, so it's no longer a background. Whoops. And then we're able to use puppet wop. So I just unlock that layer, and if I want to be able to change anything I do with my puppet wop along the way, it's actually a good idea to make it a smart object. So I'll right-click my layer. I'll right-click my layer and turn it into a smart object. So right-click it and convert to smart object. And then you'll see this small file icon appear next to the layer icon, meaning that this object is indestructible as long as it remains a smart object. You can always go back in time and change it back to what it was. Next off, we'll go to Edit, Puppet Wop, and what you want to do here is you want to place pins at the joints of her body, where the hand is located, where the elbow is located, where the shoulder is located, and so on. But just to show what the puppet wop actually is based on, we can click Show Mesh up in the control menu. And there you'll see that the puppet wop is actually separating the picture into triangles. And so if I start editing one of these this triangle right here, anything inside of that triangle will be affected, but items outside of that triangle will only be will not be affected at the same level. They will just be kind of affected a bit. Damn, my English is kind of shitty right now. Okay, but you can actually change how sensitive the mesh is by going into the density and saying there should be either fewer points, and then then you'll just destroy the picture in a matter of a few edits, or you could say there should be more points. but then it's gonna be harder to change, for example, a long joint, because then you have to set a lot of pins, because there's so many grids dividing from the start of, let's say, the hand to where the elbow meets. So then you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 grid areas. So then you'll actually have to place a lot of pins to be able to change that one joint. So I'll probably go with normal, because then it seems like there's not that many grid areas separating from the hand to the elbow. So, but it's just a matter of analyzing the picture and figuring out how many points do I want, because the amount of point will affect how the transformation will be. And then there's also some modes. Just stick with normal. If you want to do something really weird with the picture, try one of the others. Okay, now what you do, you don't need to have the mesh shown, so I'll just switch that off again. And what you just do is you click at an area where you think that's approximately where the joint is, and do it again with, and just put it everywhere that you think that there will be something that can rotate. A joint is something where you can rotate something from. So I'll just try putting it some places, perhaps. And you can also, in solar plexus, actually you can move that a bit. So I'll put one there, and perhaps here at the hips. I also, actually, it's not only to say where you can rotate something from, but it's also to say where a joint ends, so you cannot change the shape. So if you put a pin here and you edit the hand right here, and you move it, you want to move it like this, well, the pin right here will also prevent anything from here and backwards to be changed. So the pin is also protecting what comes before that area. So this pin right here, if I start changing this one, anything from here to here will be affected, but not anything from here to here. So the pin also protects the areas that are behind whatever I'm trying to change. So what I'm saying is that I want to place something down here, even though it seems yes, I want to protect that part of her, because it would seem weird if suddenly her crotch is a weird place. Yeah, okay. Okay. And one at the knee, and one by her ankle. And down here as well, and here as well. Okay, and perhaps we'll figure out that we'll need some other pins along the way. But now what you actually do is you start moving stuff. And first off, I'm just going to exaggerate, because that will really make you see what's happening. And you can just do that by clicking and dragging on a pin that you already placed. If you figure out that, oh, what did I do with that pin, then you can always delete a pin by holding down Alt and clicking on that pin, and then it will be deleted, and you can place a new pin. So if you do anything messed up to the picture, like this for example, you can always just remove that pin that is messing everything up by Alt clicking on it. Okay, so since I haven't extracted this picture, her from the background, I only want to do very minor changes, because if I do big changes, it's gonna affect the background, and you will easily be able to see that when it's big changes. If it's just small changes, perhaps just putting her elbow a bit down, then you won't be able to see it. So I could just perhaps try dragging the elbow down a bit, and right now it's gonna look very bad, because it seems like there's some jagged points at her elbow, but that's just until you click enter. That's simply because it hasn't rendered it yet. So then you can just start placing some parts of the body in another direction, So I think I'll just put both her elbows down a bit, and perhaps put her, her hand up a bit, just to show that you can make minor changes and that they'll look realistic. Perhaps I want this knee to go down somewhat more. And notice that it's actually changing the landscape while doing this. If you want to protect the landscape, I'll just remove that pin, place a new pin by the knee. Then you can actually put pins out here next to her, protecting the landscape. Oh, if it complains, you said right now cannot add a new pin because it is too close to an existing pin. I'll just click to see this mesh again, and you'll notice that it's because I'm trying to click inside the same area where there's already a pin. So if you're ever in doubt about why that warning is there, it's because you're trying to place one pin where there's already another pin. There can only be one pin per mesh. So perhaps try. So by doing it like this, actually placing areas of protection outside of the girl. Come on, protect that area. Protect that area, goddammit. Okay. You can then start seeing that you're not actually changing the background as much as before. Before we were actually kind of like rotating the entire picture in that area, but now you're. Perhaps I need one more to protect the area down here. And you see now I'm actually almost only editing her knee without actually transforming too much of the background. And perhaps I want it more straight. Perhaps I want this part to go up. So right here you can see actually if I want this thigh to go up some more towards this edge, I could place a new pin in between the joints and just try moving that upwards. And perhaps then I think, no, there's something bad happening to this area up here, so I could just remove this pin, try placing it again, and perhaps, protect some of the parts outside of her. And that perhaps makes it look more realistic. Right now it looks very bad everywhere where I've made changes, but when I hit enter, it's gonna look better. So we can just see what was it before, what is it now, by clicking Command Z or Control Z. We see this is now, this was before. I think this knee down here, perhaps some would like it like this, whereas perhaps this was too much to the other leg. I like the way that this arm is pointing downwards, but the other arm I don't like that as much. So if you ever want to change that again, then you can just go into Edit Puppet Wop and you'll see that the same points you just placed are still there. So you can just go in and edit them at any point. I want to remove this and perhaps remove this other one so it looks as if it originally was, and perhaps then change something. And this one, this thigh right here, I think it wasn't as good. And when I'm happy, I'll click enter. Perhaps actually I'll just do one more thing. Perhaps I'll move this inwards, her stomach, just to show that you can actually liquefy. I think I'll just more points. I'm just going to go to more points now, but it will make when I try to transform now, it will make the transformation different than when I worked on it before, because it will be much more detail oriented now. And right now I can actually, it's kind of like I'm using Liquify just in another way. trying to get her hip to appear more, and the curve right here to be more convex, or is it concave? I don't know. This is now before it looked like this. Okay, so that's Puppet Wop. Let's check out how it works with a picture that already has the extraction done to it. So I have a picture called Puppet Wop Jumping Man. So let's open that up, and this guy right here originally perhaps looked like this, the jumpist, and then I've put him on a separate layer where I've made it a smart object, and actually just started messing up with these pins. So let's go to the jumpist layer, which is a smart object, and go to Edit Puppet Wop. And here we see we've put these pins where his joints are approximately. We also place some that are not where the joints are, but which are there to protect some stuff. And so I could try perhaps changing the direction of his knee, and you'll notice that, whoa. And the background is not being changed now because he is not on the background. So I could just try moving perhaps some parts up, and perhaps even moving his foot up. So if I wanted him to go in split, you know, perhaps he's been doing a lot of exercise at the gym, so suddenly he's able to do a split. I don't know, spaghetti, we call that spaghetti in Danish, where you do it out from the body and not like this, but like this. Spaghetti, we call that spaghetti in Danish.
In German it's similar, but it's, I don't know the name.
Okay, what's the name in your language?
Spagat.
Spagat, okay. Okay. So he's in spagat. Yeah. So, and then when we're done doing this edit, perhaps we want him to wave as well. Hello. Hello there. Then we can move him down. We can just, take or move to just apply the transformation. You know, nothing happens with applying the transformation because you can always go in and edit the pins. So you can move him down here. Perhaps, I actually think there's something wrong with his knee here. It seems like it's broken. Yeah, so I think I'll actually just go into Puppet Wop and place another pin right here, and then move this part of the leg downwards, so it doesn't seem like his joint is that he has a bone fracture on his leg. So apply the transformation, move him down here, and move him outside of the picture, and let's say bye. Bye bye. Perhaps have a hand that's waving. I'll just put some. Just go do like this. Hello. Bye bye. And then he's out of here. That's it. He's gone. Living another life outside of our reality. So that's Puppet Wop. Okay, so we have another file called Liquify head straight, and it's actually just to get an impression of how much you can do of changes inside of Liquify. I'm not gonna try to straighten up her head because it requires you to really try a lot of times to just get it right. But if we check out how we can, the cool thing about it is that I can actually show you what I achieved in Liquify by loading a mesh that I saved in Liquify. So if I go to filter, we want to straighten her head out. We want the neck to go straight upwards and her shoulders to be next to each other instead of kind of like tilted. And aside from that, we want her to get smaller less obvious thighs.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, because it's always a kind of like it always appears as if your legs become short and fat if you have them facing towards the viewer. So that's actually a good idea when making photography, that you actually think about perhaps placing the legs a bit not directly towards the camera, except if you want your legs to appear small and fat. Okay, so not that there's anything wrong with having legs that are small. Okay, it's cool. It's okay. So
okay, and that's enough about your fetishes.
okay, so inside of advanced mode, we can actually load a mesh that already exists, and I'll just click load mesh, and inside of the folder called mesh, I don't want to take credit for this. This is actually meshes that have been created for by lynda.com. So that's the reason I don't want to take credit for it, is because of this one called Bubblehead. Whoops. So let's try the one called Bubblehead and say open. And now it's reading the mesh, and then she will look like this. Which is obviously perhaps not how she had expected her them. I don't think that's what she wanted when she had the photographer shoot pictures of her. Okay, so let's say the photographer is being nice to her. Perhaps we would load another mesh, the one called head upright. The one called head upright. Let's try opening that one. And that will straighten her neck, make her shoulders. Okay, perhaps we should not have loaded one first. So I'll just click cancel, and perhaps go to Liquify again, so it's not two meshes being loaded. So load mesh, head upright, say open. What the? Have I saved something on top of the original mesh? Oh my god. But there's something wrong with her head. Does it appear like that when you look?
Yeah, totally. But
I think I've saved something, another mesh on top of the original mesh. Okay, let's just see. Load. Okay, this is definitely not the right mesh. So let's see. Okay, so I'll correct that, because that's not the right file. I had an original file. It should be located. Let's see in here. It did not look right, and I'll just try another one. Just 1 second. Okay, I'm positive this one will work. So I think I saved on top of the original. Let's try this one located now on my desktop. Of course, you won't be able to try that one. Go to the desktop, head upright mesh, and click open.
that's how it works.
What the? This is kind of weird. I've shown this file before, and it doesn't fuck her head up. So I'm really not sure what I've done to my files. Okay, so that's how we want her to look. Okay, I could, but okay. There are some tools I wanted to show. Let's say it looked right. Let's assume that it looked right. How I had done that was actually by using this tool called Twirl Tool, where you can actually turn the direction of her face or head. But you see, what it's doing is actually it's kind of destroying her shoulders. So I'll just reconstruct that area, and I'll use another tool first. This other tool. Oh, I know why. Now I know. Emmanuel, you need to like hit me in the head or something. It's because we took the wrong file where her head is already straight. Ah, damn, man. So we need to take the one called tilted head, of course. This one it will work on. That's how she originally looked. So when you use it on this picture, then it will look right when you do it. So I was like, what's happening to my computer? Is something wrong with it? Okay, so when you choose head upright for that one, it's gonna look correct. Ta-da! So you can actually do that with the tools inside of Liquify. Okay, but how was this done essentially? I'm not gonna try getting this result, but I'm gonna show you which tools were used to get this result. And the tools used for that, I'll just click cancel, to go back to the originally tilted head. And the tools used for that is you can only see them when you're inside of advanced mode. You need to be in advanced mode, then some other tools will appear over here. And there's two tools tools that are relevant right here, and it's the freeze mask and it's the thaw mask tool. You can see one of them as a brush and the other one as an eraser. So what they actually do is this one called the freeze mask tool, it prevents an area from being edited. So if you know that you don't want her shoulders to be edited, then you would go up and paint all the way up to the shoulder area. And it's actually the like with the pins in the Puppet Wop, it's the areas that will be protected. So I can say I wanted to not edit anything until around perhaps here and perhaps here. Oh, that's too much. Because if you freeze too much of the picture, then what can happen is that you have less to edit with. So there needs to be something to edit with. Next part is I'll try using this. Oh yeah, if you took too much, you can always just use this thaw tool to just remove parts. Next off, I actually think it would be best if I kind of like made a cone going out from here. Perhaps like this. And then I'll try twirling her head. And not doing it like this. Don't hold down the mouse button because that will just make it look very weird. So you need to do it in small steps, kind of like bit by bit. And really pay attention to how her face will look, because sometimes you'll actually start changing facial details so they become rotated. And that will probably require you to use a bigger brush so it doesn't change as much details towards the center, but more the overall part. Okay, so this is not looking so good. Then afterwards you can actually move that part. You can move that part with the forward warp tool. If you get a big brush, you can move that, in towards the center. But this requires really that you're using the right size twirl brush and afterwards the right size forward warp tool brush. So I'll probably just reconstruct it all and try seeing if it will help if I'm using, and I actually think I should have used the Thaw tool differently right here. It's kind of like there's an edge that will not look right, but I'll try using the twirl tool, a bigger twirl tool this time, and perhaps that will make her face appear less distorted. Notice then that the background becomes more distorted. And it's you probably need to try it like perhaps 10 times in order to get it right. Because you see right now she has a huge lump in her shoulder, and her face is kind of like seems like someone has hit her really hard, and like the skull is starting to suffer huge damage. Yeah. Okay, so let's just say we're happy with this result. We could just try it a few more times so we get this result, you know. But if you look really closely, perhaps you'll still actually be able to see that there is some parts that were rotated in the picture. Actually, I think it seems like this eye on the left is looking more bigger than the one on the right. So there is probably some things that needs to be really taken care of and paid attention to when doing this, because it will, you know, sometimes, even though you don't notice it, it will have changed something that makes the person look a bit weird. Okay, that's Liquify. Enough about the mesh. Let's try using using Liquify for something useful and quick. And that's the last I'll be telling about transform today. And then we can see if there's anything else you want to know. Nah. Okay, so we have this one called Waistline 02. And here we'll look at just making her waistline appear slimmer. You know, it's already a thin person, but let's just make her even thinner. Have you seen the movie called Thinner with Stephen King?
No.
Okay, I think you should go home and watch that. Because that person really is at the ultimate brink of not being able to get any thinner. Have you watched The Machinist with Christian Bale?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's really thin. He almost died. Yeah. It's a cool movie, but it's very dark. I fell asleep a lot of times to that because it's so dark. You know, you really need to be fresh to keep awake to that movie. But it's really a good movie. Okay, this is a bad quality picture, so of course let's take that into account, but let's go to Filter, Liquify, and turn off this advanced mode, and inside of here we can just figure out the right size for the brush. We can just perhaps zoom in first, and then find the brush that will be so big that it's able to change the biggest area possible of this corset, but still so small that it does not affect the arm next to it. So you'll always be thinking in Liquify, finding a brush that is big enough to do big major changes, but still not huge enough changes to affect the areas next to it. So I think perhaps 27 is fine. I'll just start reshaping her waist.
We can also mask the arm.
Yeah, you could actually mask the arm if you wanted to by going into advanced mode, saying, okay, I don't want this arm to be edited at all. Of course, need to change the size, and then as precise as possible, draw up the arm like that, perhaps, and so this will be protected then. Then you can start doing it with forward warp tool. And You know, you cannot change this area now, so, and perhaps she wants bigger, yeah, implants. But you can also get it to look weird if you protect an area, because actually then I'm also preventing stuff from being pulled into that area. I'll just reconstruct because that did not look good. And I could do the same on the other side. And her shoulder over here actually looks like, it's kind of natural, you know, to have it looking like this, but a lot of girls just like if you just do this to their picture. So the shoulder appears much more defined. And you would also do that inside of magazine. If it, at least if it's Vogue, if it's just a random crappy magazine, perhaps it wouldn't be important. I'm just gonna, you know, unthaw, thaw this area, so I can, you know, you can unprotect an area afterwards, so you can edit that afterwards as you would like. But perhaps there's something here at the shoulder I would like to change as well. And when I'm done, I'll just click OK. Super. And this is now, this was before. And they do this all the time in magazines. This is, you would never see a picture inside of, let's say, Vogue or Claire or whatever, which hasn't had this kind of edit done to it. And it's, you know, it's simple and easy, so doesn't require that much time, so it's perfect for a graphics designer if they have like 500 pictures they need to edit. I'm just gonna click to close this picture as well, remove thyself, and yeah, you know, because people perhaps do it too fast, or perhaps they have no idea of how the human anatomy is. I even saw pictures where they put extra fingers on the person and so on. Whether I'm like, okay, try looking just for 30 more seconds on that picture before handing it into the whoever makes the magazine. And it's actually fun that someone has been, you know, putting pictures that are so weirdly manipulated into magazines, and then first realizing after the magazine has been published. They must have had a short deadline. Okay, so here again we're able to edit this with Liquify, but we are also able to actually not just edit the waist. Okay, I don't need to show that you can edit the waist again. Actually, perhaps I should show one area, because here it's actually going to be quite damaged when you edit it, because it's so JPEG compressed. Of course, you should not find a picture which has a lot of JPEG compression to it. But here you can see when I start to drag these areas, it's gonna look like clay you dig from the earth. It's gonna have kind of like these weird shapes going on, because that's just, I'm actually making the JPEG compression between two colors even more visible by dragging these pixels further apart from each other. That will the color damage there will become more apparent. So to fix that, I would use clone tool or some kind of healing tool afterwards. But you can also, you know, if you want to give a person bigger implants, you could use the bloat tool. You could simply just take a big size brush. This is perhaps too big. So you could, I would say, according to perhaps, yeah, so it's a bit bigger than how the area you want to fix. So perhaps like this. Then you'll just softly, perhaps with a lower rate or density, just start changing it. And just click at, like you want it to be reshaped. The texture, the fabric of the material will start to look a bit weird. But then you can either fix that afterwards using clone stamp and trying to figure out which direction should it really be in, this fabric, afterwards. Or you could just try seeing if you could fix it perhaps with reconstruct tool, seeing if it will become a bit more precise and correct. So I could just start just making small edits. So on, and perhaps that looks a bit better. Okay, that perhaps it should be more curved right here, but otherwise you can see that the shape is somewhat different, and it would just be small edits I need to make now in order to get the fabric to look correct. Okay. Yeah, perhaps, yeah. But I think that's actually how she looks. I think it's, because a lot of these models you find on pictures, they have very anorectic bodies, so their head will appear big compared to how, skinny their body is. So I think that's just it. And perhaps this one especially has a long neck, so that will make it appear even smaller.
It's easier to liquefy the head than the body. That's why they prefer some skinny models, probably.
Yeah, you can always, you can go in and liquefy her head smaller if you want to, if you think that her head is too big. So then you have the Pugger tool, which makes things smaller, and you could just try making her head smaller. Just watch out, because right now I made her forehead too high, so I'm just gonna reconstruct her. Oops. And yeah, I could also start, protecting some areas of the body, but with my freeze mask, I think I'll take a bigger size. This is too much. Oh, that was bloat tool. Pugger tool. I want Pugger tool. I think I need to actually protect her body. So I'm just gonna say you're not allowed to edit down here. And then try again. And then perhaps actually afterwards drag her head down a bit. Okay, and then we can see, does that look more like the proper size?
Yeah.
And you cannot see that this is not the same. It still appears to be the same person, just with a size of head that perhaps is more proper. It actually looks more realistic with a smaller head. Okay, but I think that's all for today. This was just some bits of information about how you could transform pictures in order to make them look more correct for magazine design. And if I have more on my heart, I don't think so, because you would probably like to be working on whatever. Yeah, and tomorrow it's retouching with high pass and low pass and actions inside of Photoshop. Yeah. Do you have any goodbye sayings you want inside of the video?
Peace and love.
Peace and love?
Yeah.
Cool. Out. Peace out. Peace out.